So in the last class, we were learning different practices for CI/CD, like how we have done it from Azure DevOps, how the continuous integration triggers, everything about continuous integration and deployment we have seen. Now, earlier we deployed all those things into the Azure App Service. Okay, we were using web app and all. Now we will be using Docker containers. Now, if you go into the admin class when we were performing the container apps, there whole one class I've taken on Docker containers. You can go and refer that class. There I've shown you how containers evolved, how Docker is evolved, and how to write the Docker file and all. How you can write the Docker file and all. Well, Uh, I'll show you a proper Docker file in this lab. Okay. So let's start. So this is about deploying Docker containers to Azure App Service. Means you will be having your source code. Using your source code, what you will be doing? You will be writing Docker images. And you will be storing the Docker images into the Docker registry. And from there, you will be using Docker images to create the containers. So objectives are: build a custom Docker image by using a Microsoft hosted Linux agent, push an image to Azure Container Registry, and then deploy a Docker image as a container to Azure App Service by using Azure DevOps. So configure lab prerequisite in this exercise. You will set the lab prerequisites for the lab, which consists of new Azure DevOps project with the repository based on the eShop on web. So we already have that, set up. I go to Azure DevOps organization. We already have that eShop on web project. So we'll skip all these things. We'll not import it again. Till here you have already performed, you might be having. Now task 3, set main branch as default branch. That is also done. Manage the service connection. Now last time we have deleted our service connection. So now what we will do, we'll again create a service connection over here. Now, if you are already having some service connection in Azure DevOps, then you can skip it. But if you don't have, then you can create it. So you can go to the service connections here. See, I deleted the service connection, so I'll create it again. You can create a connection from Azure pipelines to external and remote services of executing task in the job. In this task, you will create a service principal by using Azure CLI. Okay. Earlier, we used to create a service principal by portal or either by Azure DevOps portal, right? So from here, you can create a service connection. You can choose Azure Resource Manager, go next, choose service principal, automatic, click on next. It will create a service connection for you. This time, let's see how you can create it with Azure CLI, okay, through commands and all. You will need a service principal to deploy Azure resource from the pipeline. A service principal is automatically created by the Azure pipeline when you connect to Azure subscription from inside a pipeline. Now from the lab computer, start the web browser, go to the Azure portal, sign into your account. That should be. In the Azure portal, click on Cloud Shell icon. Now we'll go to the Cloud Shell. Okay. We'll create from the Cloud Shell. I'll open a duplicate one. In this, I'll open the Cloud Shell. Now in this lab, we are creating a service principal connection using commands, and that too using Azure CLI. So what I'll do, instead of PowerShell, I'll be switching this shell to Bash. Okay, because Azure CLI you can run on Bash only. Okay. If prompted to select Bash or PowerShell, select Bash. From the Bash prompt in the Cloud Shell pane, run following commands to retrieve the values of the Azure subscription ID attribute. Now what this will do, this will retrieve subscription name, $AZ account show query name output. Now it will retrieve the subscription name and the subscription ID. And what is this echo? Echo is for printing that subscription name and subscription ID. What you can do, you can copy this command, paste it over here. See, subscription name, it has printed Azure subscription 1 and below the subscription ID. Copy both the values to the text file. You will need them later. From the bash prompt in the Cloud Shell pane, run the following command to create the service principal. Now this command will create the service principal for you using Azure CLI. Meanwhile, what I'll do, I'll copy these things. Paste it here. Go back, I'll copy this command. Go to the notepad. See, now AZADSP create for RBAC. Name. So name of the SP which they are creating is SP-AZ400 AZ do, and role they are giving contributor role. Scope, on which scope they are giving? On the subscription. So you can copy this command. Paste. This will create a service principal for you. The command will generate the JSON output. Copy the output to the text file. You will need it later. See, this is the JSON output containing your application ID, the display name, the password. Password means the secret. Okay. See, so service principal connection is created, and the service principal has created with the Azure DevOps. Now in the Entra ID, if you will go into the app registration, you will find an app that is already created. So in the app registration, you can see in the all applications, SPAZ 400 AZ2. This application has been created now as a part of service principal connection. Next, from the lab computer, start a web browser, navigate to eShop on web project, click the project settings, service connections under pipeline, new service connection. Now you have to go to Azure DevOps. Now what you have to do, you have created the service principal. Now you have to add that service principal over here. So you will click on create a connection. You choose the Azure Resource Manager, will go next. Choose service principal manual, click on next. Now you have to give the subscription ID over here, whatever you have copied down. So provide the subscription ID. What else? Subscription name. What else? Service principal ID means your application ID, which you have created. This one. Now earlier we were creating automatic service principal connections. Now we are creating it manual service connection. Okay. Service principal key is it asking for? So copy the password. The password. What else? Tenant ID. So copy that tenant ID. Service connection name you can give. So this is the service connection name or any other name if you want. So they have taken Azure connection as the name. So you can give that particular name over here. Now you can either verify from here whether these details are correct or directly you can verify and save. So directly you can click on verify and save. So your service connection has been verified and has been saved. Now you have established that service connection over here. And the exercise 2, import and run the CI pipeline here. Now again we will be importing some pipeline, some YAML pipeline from our code. Go to pipelines, new pipeline button. So from here, go to your project, click on pipelines, click on new pipeline. Azure Repos Git, eShop on web, existing YAML pipeline. Now here, what pipeline they're asking for? eShop on web CI docker.yaml. So eShop on web CI docker.yaml. eShop on web CI docker.yaml. Let's see what this pipeline says. Okay. Now, if you can see this pipeline here, resources, repositories, self, trigger, as of now, trigger is none. Okay. Now in the variable section. So first section is resources, second is variable. So in the variable section, you can see there is a Azure service connection. Azure connection. Subscription ID, you have to edit your subscription ID over here. Resource group. Now, whatever resource group you want to create, you can give the name. So either you can go and create the resource group over here or pipeline will create it for you. You can do anything. Okay. Location, West Europe. Now what we will do, we'll start building this thing. So what we have in our pipelines, if you remember the classic pipeline, first was the stage. So in the stage, we have the build stage, job, first job is build job. Now for running that particular stage, every stage runs on an agent. So here we are using an Azure agent that is Ubuntu latest. Okay. Now comes the task, steps. Inside the step, we have task. Now what are the tasks? So we are doing something here like we need to deploy something first. So if you can see that this task is a PowerShell task, Azure Resource Manager template deployment. So earlier, if you have seen in admin classes, we have done the template deployments using PowerShell. So some command we have used like AZ resource group template deployment and all. Similarly, we are choosing a task over here, Azure Resource Manager template deployment. Now, whatever is the, you can say, requirement, you can definitely look into the documentation. There are like documentation for, you can say, pipeline task. So if you search for pipeline, Azure build pipeline task. Azure build pipeline YAML. Schema, reference, documentation. jobs, container, deployment strategy, deployment strategy. You can, if you want, you can have all the, you can download this documentation as a PDF also. You'll find each and every documentation regarding the task and all, if you want, whenever you will be creating a pipeline. Okay. So basic syntax is that only. There is a stage, then there is a job, then there is a task. Okay. So in the steps, we are deploying something through Azure Resource Manager template. Now display name is deploy ACR using a bicep. Now bicep file is similar to ARM template. It is also written in JSON. It is also written in JSON. Now I'll open up a duplicate one here. From where this bicep file it is taking, I'll show you. Okay. If you click on Azure over here, inside Azure folder, there is a bicep folder. Inside the bicep, all the bicep files are there. Now it is taking that ACI bicep, Azure container or ACR bicep, it would be taking for creating the container registry. Okay. So let's see in the pipeline what bicep it is referring to. So file is ACR bicep inside .azure bicep and ACR bicep. You can see this ACR bicep. Now what this ACR bicep is saying, it is creating, this bicep file is creating a container registry. Now to, after creating an Docker image, like after editing the code, where you keep the code, you keep into the code repository. What is the code repository for us? Azure DevOps. Okay. It is similar to GitHub, what we have seen in the last class. Okay. So you keep the code into the central repository. Now, in the similar fashion, if you're deploying the microservices using the container, you have to create a Docker image. And where you will keep the Docker image? Into the Docker registry. So here in Azure, we have Azure Container Registry for keeping the images into the remote location, or central repository for keeping the images is Azure Container Registry. So what this bicep file is doing here is, first it is creating a container registry into the portal. So now generate a suffix based on the resource group ID. So what it will do first, what this bicep file is doing, I'm telling you, okay? So it is generating a suffix based on the resource group ID. Now there is a resource group and the resource group ID. Based on that resource group ID, it is generating some name for the Azure Container Registry. So generate a suffix based on resource group ID, then use the resource group location. It is taking the location also. Then resource, which resource they are creating? ACR, Azure Container Registry. Microsoft.container registry and registries. Okay, this is from Microsoft only. Then name, CR. CR, it is taking, they are taking a fixed name as CR, and they are after that CR, they are taking the suffix which they have generated on the basis of resource group ID. So that will become the name of the Azure Container Registry. Then location, whatever location the resource group location is, that only they will take. SKU, basic SKU they are using. Properties, admin user enabled, false. At the rate description, output the login server property for later use. Okay. So there must be some property, okay, which they are incurring out of that ACR login server. So there will be a server which will be created for ACR, Azure Container Registry, where you will be keeping your images somewhere in the background with Azure. Okay. So this is what this bicep file is doing. It is creating the Azure Container Registry. So if you go to pipeline now, so in this task, they are doing nothing. They are just creating an Azure Container Registry. So what they are doing, deployment scope, where they will create on the inside the resource group. Azure Resource Manage connection. So they are using the connection to create this. Subscription ID, in which subscription they are using. Action, create or update resource group. Now, if the resource group is not been created, create it. Or if it has been created, then update it. Okay. So both the action. If you want, you can create the resource group directly from here, from the portal. If you don't want, it will create it for you. Resource group name, dollar resource group. Location, dollar location. Template location, linked artifact. CSM file. Now where it is taking the bicep file from .azure folder. Inside the bicep folder, then ACR bicep. Deployment mode, incremental. Deployment output, output.json. Okay. So this whole setup is for creating ACR registry. Now in the settings here, in the task, you have created ACR. Now let's talk about the second task. After creating the container registry, what you will do? So there is a PowerShell task they are taking. Pass bicep output. Okay. Target inline. Now this is the one what they are doing here. Output the login server property for the later use. Okay. So that's what. Then now comes the Docker. Since you are deploying you need to deploy the microservice. So you need Docker. And Docker, for creating a Docker container, you need a Docker image. So first task after this, you will create a Docker image. So task is Docker here. Task is Docker. Display name, build the Docker image. Input Azure subscription, Azure Container Registry. Now the input is Azure Container Registry also. Why? Because you will be needing to store the Docker image. Docker file. Now where is this Docker file? SRC web Docker file. So if you close this one and go to SRC, go to web. Now if you see, go down, there is a Docker file over here. See, this is the Docker file. Now what they are doing in the Docker file? What we do in our local when we create a project. So very first thing, we start the project and what we do? Very first thing, starting, say we are doing the .NET project. So all the things, if I show you that notepad where we have run all the commands. Okay.
Hello world demo.
See, steps for creating ASP.NET. So first we are creating a folder, then Hello World demo as a project, then new solution we are creating. And what else? .NET new MVC. MVC project, a Hello World app we are creating in the version .NET 6 framework 6.0. And then we are adding the solution file to the Hello World app project. So all these things what we were doing here in our local. So we'll writing all these things in the form of commands into the Docker file. Now, how to write it? This is the Docker file over here. From mcr.microsoft.com .NET SDK 7.0 as build. Now they are for .NET framework, they are considering some package manager, some package registry. Okay, mcr.microsoft.com. From there, they are taking the image .NET SDK 7.0 as build. After that, what is your work directory here? So work directory is app folder. So here is some app folder will be there. That is your work directory. Now, after that, what they are doing? They are copying the solution. So copy command. These are simple CMD commands. These are simple CMD commands, what they are using in the Docker file. Okay. So running the copy command. Now what they are copying? They are copying the solution to your project. So it's similar to that. .NET new solution, .NET new solution. Then they are adding the solution to the Hello World app. So now they are copying the solution over there. Okay. Now work directory, app, src, web, run .NET restore. Now inside this, wherever they have copied the solution and all, there they will run the command. So run cmd command. What? .NET restore. Then after restoring, what we do here, we do build and we do run. But when we have to create some artifact, we skip these steps. What we do? Directly we publish. Okay. So run .NET publish -c release -o out output. And then after performing all these steps here in the Docker file, now at last, there is a command used entry point. There's a command used entry point.
There is copy solution. After that, we are copying the folder, something like that.
Right.
What is the action is doing there?
This one?
Yeah.
See, when you create the folders, so there are two folders created. If you go to the project over here in the Azure DevOps, if you go and see the project. Now inside the Hello World demo, there is a Hello World app and there is a solution file. Earlier, when you create the solution, so solution you create differently and Hello World app you create differently. Then what you do, you add that solution file with all the folders into the Hello World app, Hello World demo, where we created the project. So we are adding those two things inside the Hello World demo. So here we run that add command, but here it works differently. Here we run the copy command there. So we are copying that whole solution. Whatever the files and folders will be there inside the solution, we are all copying that into the app. We are copying that into the app. Okay. And then we are restoring it. Now, after all this thing, after all these,
One point. Line number 20.
Mhm.
It's repeating our build and runtime. What is the runtime here?
See, build is when they are, so from build means they are using MS build tool over there. Now, if you see here, there is creating the solution, adding the solution to the app, then building the code.
Okay.
So here in the background, there is a MS build tool, which is used to build your project. And after building, then you run and then you, if you want to publish, you don't run. But if you want to run the code, you will do perform .run over here, .NET run, which will run your code directly. But if you don't want to run it currently, then you can publish and you can create a folder where your all the artifacts will be downloaded. So similar fashion, here what they are doing, all these things, what they are doing from here to here, they are running all these things in the MS build tool. They are using the MS build from mcrmicrosoft.com. And after that, after building, what they will do, they will be using the runtime, means they will be running your application. So for that purpose, they will be using this mcrmicrosoft.com, .NET, ASP.NET and as runtime. This is as build. They are creating the build. And what they will do here, they will run your application. Whenever you will be pushing this inside the container, it will run your application after building. So build, whenever you push this image to the Docker container, this Docker file executes, and at once everything is happening. At once everything is happening. Pulling the MS build tool from the repository, then working on your work dir, building your code. After building, they will be start running your code. For running it, they are using this runtime from the Microsoft registry.
So the image converted into container, that is running here, right?
This is all, this is a file which will create your image.
Oh, okay.
Okay, image is somewhat like you can say like an image file you have seen in your computer, right? Yeah, or anywhere you have seen an image file which is generated.
Yeah.
That it will generate, and that image is the whole bundle of your code plus dependencies and everything. Means whatever is required to run your application, this image will contain everything.
Got it.
For example, we have created this hello world demo. Now we can run this application. We can open the command prompt. We can run this application. But if we want to publish this application or deploy this application somewhere, we need some artifact. And that artifact, what we did, we have that artifact inside publish. So inside publish, you can see that this publish folder is having all the environment, all the dependencies which are used to running that particular application, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the similar fashion, when you create a Docker image, this Docker image, after creation of Docker image with the Docker file, you have each and everything in that particular image to run that particular application. That image it will create. And then directly you can push that particular image to the container registry, where you will maintain the versions of your images, and then you can run a Docker container using that particular image. That's what we are doing. Okay. So earlier we created a container registry. Now we are creating a Docker image. And after creating the Docker image, what we are doing here, we are pushing that Docker image to the container registry. So in this way, we are building our code in the form of Docker image, and we are pushing it to the Docker registry. Now this is the CI. Now there will be another CD file which will be utilizing your Docker image from the Docker container, and it will deploy your application. So let's see, let's build it. So in the YAML file, your subscription ID, you can change your subscription ID. Then with the resource group name that will be created by the pipeline, it can be existing resource group 2. Means if this resource group is existing also, then also it will update. Okay. So if you want, you can create the resource group as well. Or if you don't want to create, it will be created by the pipeline. So let it be created by the pipeline only. In the meanwhile, what we do, we edit the name. I'll keep the name something like this. I'll edit the location as well. East US. Okay. And what else? Subscription ID. So we had the subscription ID over here. You can copy the subscription ID, and then I can paste the subscription ID over here. Now what else they are saying? Click save and run and wait for the pipeline to execute successfully. The CI definition consists of the following tasks. Now this CI definition file, which I explained just now, consists of these tasks. First is resources. So it downloads the repository. So at first it is downloading the repository. Okay. Then Azure Resource Manager template deployment deploys the Azure Container Registry using Bicep template. PowerShell task, retrieve the ACR login server value from the previous task. So after here with this task, a Docker ACR is created, Azure Container Registry. So what this PowerShell task will do, this will retrieve the login server from the task and create new parameter ACR login server. Then on the fourth, Docker build. So build the Docker image and create two tags, latest and current build ID. And then in the Docker push the image to the container registry. These things this CI file will do. So you can click on save and run. We are directly committing as of now for the main branch. So if you go here in the build in the checkout task, very first task, checking out the resources, you can see git version. From the git is taking the code, copying to the Azure repo, deploying ACR bicep. Now it is creating the ACR, Azure Container Registry. After this task, we'll see Azure ACR is created. This is done. Now, if you go back to your here, if you go to the resource groups, a resource group has been created. Inside that, if you refresh, see a Docker container registry has been created. Now it is building the Docker image. Run.NET restore, run.NET publish, publishing the web project. Now these are pushing the images to the container registry, CRXBTIM container registry. The job has been completed. We go to the pipelines here. This is the pipeline. You can rename this pipeline CI Docker. Now after this, after doing all this, import and run the CD pipeline. So in this exercise, you will configure the service connection with your Azure subscription, then import the run CD pipeline, add a new role assignment, navigate to the portal, In the Azure portal, click on Cloud Shell located directly to the right of the search box. If prompted, select Bash. From the Bash, in the Cloud Shell, run the following commands to retrieve the values of the Azure subscription ID attribute. Now, in order to use this CD pipeline, what are the things you have to give some role? Now, what is that role? So you can see that on this resource group, they are giving some role. SPID, they are assigning that SPID, means whatever SP or service principal we have created, they are adding to that particular. Now, why they are adding? So when you are deploying this Docker image into the web app, now there is a web app and there is a container registry. Now everything will be done without any manual intervention. So, and here we have our app. Now what we need to do, this web app, what it will do? This web app will pull the image from the Docker registry. This web app will pull the image from the Docker registry. But without permission, it cannot pull. Directly, it cannot pull. So what you have to do, this web app will be pulling the image from the Docker registry or container registry. I'll say container registry. Images are there, Docker images. Okay. Pull action. It cannot directly pull. It will not let directly pull. So in a way, there is a service principal connection which we created. Service principal. So this service principal will help the web app to pull. So what we will be doing, we will add, now this service principal is having its own identity. So we will be adding the identity or ID of this service principal to this Docker registry. So now the Docker registry will know, okay, it is a valid user. This service principal is a valid user or authenticated user. So the Docker registry will let service principal access its images. And who will access using this service principal? This web app. And after accessing, Docker registry will provide the image to the web app for deployment. So direct action cannot be done. So it will go this way. So we need to add the role assignment. What role assignment? We need to add this SP to the Docker registry. Not to the Docker registry, to the resource group carrying the Docker registry. So that this service principal can access the resource group where the Docker registry exists. So that's what they are talking about here. From first to, you can say in the task number 1, add a role assignment. That's what they are talking about. Adding the role assignment. So easy role assignment, what they are adding? They are adding the SPID. Where is the SPID? This is the SPID. So they are adding the SPID. Where they are adding? To the resource group. Which resource group? Which we have created. This resource group. So once that role assignment has been added, you can see that particular SP added over here in the IAM role. As of now, if you see the role assignment, you will not find. Okay. I think already last time I have done that, maybe. So let it be. That's what they are doing here. Okay. So they are adding the role assignment. So what you have to do? You have to go here to this registry and you have to run that. So it will retrieve the SPID and all. See, it has retrieved these two things. Now what? Add the roles assignment. After getting the service principal ID and the role name, let's create the role assignment by running this command. Replace this name with your resource group name. So copy this one, copy to the notepad and replace it with your resource group name. What is the resource group name? This is the resource group name. Replace it with that. Now copy this and add the role assignment over there. Now the role assignment has been added. Okay. So this JSON is the proof that our command is successful. Okay. You should now see the JSON output which confirms the success of the command run. Import the run pipeline now. Now we'll be importing the CD pipeline. So again, we'll go into the pipelines, new pipeline, YAML, eShop on web. And now eShop on web, CD web app docker your .yaml. That is the pipeline. We'll create a new pipeline over here. Go to Azure repos, eShop on web, existing pipeline. Now the eShop on web CD. CD web app docker.yaml. CD web app docker.yaml. Okay. Let's see what this pipeline is doing. Now in the variables, it is verifying the service connection, resource group. Now stages. Earlier we have in the stages, we were doing build. Here we are doing deployment stage. So deployment job. Again, they are using some agent, Azure agent, Ubuntu latest. Now what deployment job? Same task. What we have used for creating Azure Container Registry, same task you will use for the deployment of web app, Azure web app. Okay. So what you create over here, like if you want to create a web app, what you do? You directly go to the app service, create a web app. This all will be done by the bicep file now. Now, which is the bicep file? Web app docker bicep. So here, if you will go, you close this, go to Azure, go to bicep. See, web app docker bicep. You can see this. So retrieving the name from the resource group, retrieving and adding it as a suffix to CR that will create your web app. Then resource, what is the app service plan? It is taking over here. Then resource web app. It will add the web app inside the app service plan. Okay. And then system
What
assigned
is
managed. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, what is the format for the bicep template? Like you're saying, first one is suffix, app service plan, and web apps.
No, actually, what they are doing, see, either you can hard code the name, but hard code the name will not work. So what they are inheriting the name from the resource group. Okay. So say for example, what they are doing, they have taken some common prefix. Like for example, this we are doing for container registry and all. So they have taken a prefix as CR. This will be common. This will be common. Okay. So they have taken prefix as common. But what they are doing in the next, they are generating the suffix. They are generating the suffix as the resource group name ID. So according to the resource group name, whatever the resource group name is. So in our case, we have this one. This is the resource group name. So they are inheriting from this resource group ID. They are inheriting from the resource group ID. So in that case, what they are doing here in the bicep file. So
Now my question is like, what is use of the bisect here?
what is?
Use of the bisect code here. We are already writing the Docker file, right?
No, this is not the Docker file. This is the bicep file which will create. See, we are making use of this bicep file over here in the pipeline.
Oh, through the bisect only we are creating the web apps, right?
Right. So what we are doing, each and every infrastructure we are creating through bicep file only here. We are not creating anything manually. Okay. So that's why this is the bicep file. Now here this bicep file is used. Earlier we have used ACR bicep file which created Azure Container Registry. Here we are using web app bicep file which will create a web app for us in which we will be deploying our code or Docker image. Okay.
And what is the format for the bicep file you are writing, right?
Format for the bicep you will get it now. You will get it. So bicep deployment in Azure you will search for.
No, I just explained there also. No issue. Already you have written right. Just explain the steps here. So.
Okay, yeah, sure. So first thing here, you are creating the web app. Okay. In the next step, what you are doing?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Abhishek, instead of bicep file, can we use ARM?
We can use ARM, but then we have to sit and write whole ARM. We don't have any ARM as of now. Okay. This as an activity, if you want, you can do at your side. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you can do at your side. If you face difficulty, then I'm there to help you. Okay. Yeah. There is no difference in the bicep file and ARM template. Okay. Both are in JSON format only. Almost same syntax they have. Okay. So using the bicep file or seeing the bicep file, you can write ARM template also. Okay. Yeah. Try it out. Try it out with it.
So
actually, my question is like, for the pipeline we are writing steps, stage steps, job, right? So how we are using the bisect template? That's why how we are using this bisect file. Can you explain that bisect file?
How you are using it means these steps will be pulling the bicep file. You have the bicep file in your repository.
Yeah, this bisect file, how the process, I mean how we are writing based on that creating the web apps. So what is steps we are using here? That's what I'm asking.
So for that step, you can follow the documentation. That's what I'm saying. You will find each and everything over there in the documentation. So whatever the steps, if you see all documentation, you will find over here. So according to these documentation, you have to like go and see for the template file, whatever you need. Didn't got what I'm saying?
Actually, you have already written, right? Just explain the steps only. That's enough.
So that I was explaining steps only over here in the bicep file. So this is the bicep file. At the first step, they are generating the name of the web app. So that's what written over here in the generate a suffix based on resource group ID. So they are generating the suffix based on resource group ID, then use the resource group location. So at whatever location you want to create the web app, they are using the same location as the resource group. See, they are inheriting resource group dot location. Then what they are doing? Resource. What resource they are creating? ACR Microsoft Container Registry existing name. Now they are taking the name CR and they are adding the suffix. Whatever the suffix they have generated from the resource group ID, they are adding it.
Oh, that's why I'm asking. The resource group ID will be a suffix, right here?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And then later on, same thing they are doing with the resource. Now they are, what resource they are creating over here? App service plan. So same suffix will be added. Now they are doing ASP. ASP is for app service plan, hyphen, and again they are using the same suffix. Similarly, they are doing it for web app also. Web app, they have taken the name as app, hyphen, again suffix. So one time they have generated this suffix from the resource group ID and they are creating the web app. Now, similar way, you go here, you create a web app. Now, after creating the web app, you take any random name which is available. Okay. You take any, if I'll write here a web app, it may not be available. See, not available. So what they are doing based on, so any random name might not be available, like web app, web apps, or any kind of name might not be available by why? Because it creates a unique namespace. It needs a unique namespace, means anywhere in the world, you cannot repeat the name of the web app if it is existing.
The characteristic will be anything is measured like 16 or 24, something like that? No.
Can you come again?
The characteristic will be anything is fixing over there, like 16 character, 24 character, something like that.
Like it is between 3 to almost 24 characters, I think. Between 3 to 24 characters.
Okay.
Yeah. That I'm not sure, but what I have read, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Between 3 to 24 characters you can take.
The suffix value and we are going to be provided there, right? In the bicep. That's what they are taking.
Yes, because if you take or hard code any random name, your template or your pipeline might fail. Because someone might have taken that web app name. So what we are doing, we are generating the web app name according to our resource group name or resource group ID. So
Okay.
there are no chances that whatever the suffix you are creating, it should be taken by anyone because your resource group ID is different. Everyone's resource group ID is different, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's why they are generating using resource group ID. So now when you run this file, our web app will be generating with having app hyphen suffix name, then an app service plan will be generated naming prefix as ASP and then the suffix with the resource group ID, what they are inheriting. Import the CD pipeline. This is a CD pipeline. Now in the CD pipeline, what they are doing, first step, they are creating the web app. Second step, what they are doing, add role assignment using the bicep. Now this is the part what they are doing over here. This thing. Adding the role assignment at the second step. So they cannot do this step earlier. Why they cannot do? Because web app is not created. Okay. Now, since the web app is created at this particular step, now they can perform the role assignment. So for role assignment, again, they are using some bicep file. Now you can call it as a kind of automation, or you can say infrastructure as a code, because here, whatever you want to do on the portal side, you can use a bicep file or a ARM template, and you can perform that using a bicep file or either a ARM template. Now, if you want to create some resource, you can use ARM template. If you want to give some RBAC permissions or any kind of permission, you can use ARM template. Apart from that, you can use a bicep file also. Here they are using that bicep file only for each and everything. Okay. Each and everything on which side? On portal side. Okay. So that you should not have to do anything manually. That's what automation is all about, right? That's what DevOps automation is all about. That you should not have to do anything manually. Everything should be done using pipelines and all. Okay. That's why they have given the name CI/CD. So any random name will not be available. So that's why they are giving the name like this. They are using the web app files, bicep files. Now, first bicep for creating the ACR container registry, second bicep file they are using for creating the web app. Now, third bicep file they are using for creating the role assignment. Okay. So in the role assignment step also, what they are doing, generating a suffix based on resource group ID. Now they have to give some name to that particular role assignment, what they are creating. Okay. Set the ACR pull role definition. Now there is a particular role, ACR pull role. And then definition ID. They are taking that particular ID. Okay. And then generate a unique GUID to use a name for the role assignment. So a unique name will be taken for the role assignment, and that role, that name will be depending on suffix and all what they are using. Okay. Then ACR here, same name, CR suffix, resource web app hyphen suffix, resource web app to ACR role assignment. This is the name what they have given, web app to ACR role assignment. Okay. And what role definition is ACR pull role definition ID. Now, these are all the built-in. If you search for ACR, Azure built-in roles. Okay. So here, all these roles, what we have used are built-in roles. We can use that built-in role with these IDs. Everything is present. Okay. These are built-in roles. So you can use these IDs. You can call the roles using these IDs. So from here, we are inheriting all these things from the documentation of Azure. Got it? Hello. This is clear, right? See, for getting through to all these things, you have to sit and write the files and do it by yourself. Then only you will get it. Okay, you have to practice at least 15 days, 20 days, then you will be through to all this. Okay, so for built-in roles, all these things, you can follow these kind of documentation. When we were doing all these things, we were also doing like this only, following the documentation and all, Azure documentation and all. Okay, everything is not handy. So we'll change the name over here. We'll give the subscription ID and all. Okay. And we'll run this. So let's give the subscription ID. See, only these part it are little bit, you can say, tough, where you have to write the YAML files and all. Okay. Otherwise, if your organization allows to work with classic editor files, then definitely you can use classic editor files. No worries. No one will ask you why you are using that. Okay. But if you want to go with YAML, then you have to practice this. Then only you will get it. YAML,
YAML.
bicep, all those things.
Classic will be absolute, right? Going to be absolute, right?
Huh, see, and no one asks in the organization why you are using that. Okay. But some organization they pinpoint. Okay. Some of the managers they pinpoint. Oh, don't use classic, use YAML only. Some of the organization they pinpoint. Okay. That is the only issue. But in the big organization, if you are working, in the big organizations, if you are working, then no one will pinpoint why you are using classic and all. Okay. In my organization, we can use classic. I don't even bother that who is my my subordinate they are using YAML or all those things. I just want the work to be done. Whether you use YAML, whether you use classic, I don't worry. The work should be done anyhow.
So the company will ask you to use YAML, right?
No, they don't ask anything. So I am leading the DevOps team. No, so I'll be giving them instructions what to use, what to not. So I don't bother about that using YAML or not. What you are comfortable with, you can use. If you are
Mhm,
comfortable with YAML, you can use. If you comfortable with classic editor, you can use.
mhm.
Anyhow, the work should be done.
I see.
But sometimes for interviews, you should they might ask in the interviews whether you write pipelines in YAML or not.
Mhm.
So definitely then this lab will help you. Okay.
Yeah.
Two or three things you guys need to practice, like writing a Docker file, bicep file, ARM template, these three things. Or if you want YAML pipeline, then you have to practice that. Rest, everything is tool based. Everything you can learn in one day. Apart from these things, you have to practice these things.
Sure.
So now if you go over here, you go to the resource group. Inside the resource group, now you can see ECR registry is there, app service plan is there, and then app service is there. Go to the app service. Still loading. Your web app is deployed, your application is deployed.
Mhm.
So that is what we had today. Just go through these labs, okay? One time, two time, three times. You can create, if you want, you can create your own local application like this. And you can use Docker to write the Docker file, create the Docker image out of this application. And then you can use Azure DevOps, writing the CI file, CI/CD file. So you can get each and every step one by one.